Welcome back, people, to the Athletic Lives in Balance podcast. I'm your host, Nate Kavicki. These days, I specialize in helping busy athletic parents and working professionals to maximize their body composition, lose weight, regain confidence, and boost their energy levels. I'm super happy to have my good friend and another very good physical therapist within my network. It's one of the benefits of studying exercise science is I have this huge network of people to work with. But Dr. Jeff LeBlanc, I will let you do your elevator speech here in a minute and talk about what you're doing these days. But Jeff's a practicing physical therapist. I believe he's working as a professor at a local university right now as well in the Boston area. But Jeff and I have known each other, I went over this with Maz, I think 17 years, which is wild because we met, he was 2006. Jeff was literally my next door neighbor in my first dorm room in college. So that's kind of where we started. We studied exercise physiology together, roommates in college, reconnected and lived a few years out in San Diego while you were studying your DPT. And beyond that, Jeff also has experience within the strength and conditioning industry, which I imagine helps within physical therapy. That's kind of our background and where we come from. I'll hand it over to you. Talk about what you're doing these days. Let's go from there, dude.
Yeah, sure. Aside from being a husband and a father of two, I direct a busy outpatient clinic, outpatient orthopedic physical therapy, kind of your standard what you would imagine as outpatient ortho. And I'm an adjunct professor at Marymount College and teach anatomy, physiology 1 and 2. So that's like entry level stuff for the kids looking to get into the health sciences. And also this year started speaking for a pharmaceutical company on topics related to physical therapy, pain management, things like that for people with bleeding disorders. So lots going on and it's all good stuff, and just trying to keep my ducks in a row, and but it's a lot of fun. I'm really passionate about all the things I'm doing, which is helpful. So
yeah, right on. How are you enjoying the being a professor as you were once a college student?
It's a lot of fun. I try to, because I can relate to the kids that just aren't as strong students and things like that. I wasn't the strongest student for a number of reasons, but I can relate to them, and I try to say, hey, I'll give them some problem solving, how to be efficient with studying. That's a overlooked thing. It's like you could spend 8 hours studying, but how much of it did you grasp? So I really enjoy that aspect of it, and simplifying the complexities of the human body, really. Sure. Could be highly complex at times, and just breaking it down into principles and always going back to those, I think it really helps. So
awesome, man.
I'm enjoying it.
When did you start the pharmaceutical thing? Because I know you yourself have hemophilia, so I'm assuming that's kind of near and dear to your heart, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think the talks of joining them started about a year ago, and then they had me create a presentation, and they wanted do a presentation on physical therapy. I was like, well, kind of lame, so I went with more the titles understanding your pain, so helping people just understand what pain is, because it's it's really prevalent in that community, and it's physical therapy is an underutilized service in that community. But just start with the basics, why are you feeling this, and then what to do, how to manage it effectively, and things like that. So it required some approval from the legal team with the pharmaceutical company and things like that. So once that was ironed out, I've done 4 talks already around the country, and it's been incredible, actually. Just getting to work with people that share the same disorder as me, and I can really relate to him, and yeah, so it's really enjoying it.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to actually talk about golf with you today because I'm sure quite a few of my followers are golf people,
Yeah.
and you yourself played collegiate golf, and then I imagine you're applying a lot of things you know within the physical therapy realm into golf. But I always think about I don't even know if it's like the only time, but the first time I ever played golf with you, I have a decent swing for someone who didn't wasn't like an avid golfer.
When did we
But
play?
we played in
What was
San
the first?
Diego in
Oh
Coronado.
yeah, hell yeah, yeah. Coronado
We
is
played with
awesome.
me. It was me, you, Corey, and Wes. And
That's right.
it's
Yeah.
funny because with rec sports, like whenever you play rec sport with some people that you've never done it before,
Hmm.
and you're playing with someone who played it at a higher level, and there's that immediate like, oh shit, like this person's really good. Like I had that with you when we played golf that first time because I still remember like, I think you hit last or whoever, but we all swung and then you got up there and you ripped it and just like the sound it hit when it hit the ball, I was like, okay, he's a lot better than us at this. But I do want to get into that a little bit later because I'm sure a lot of
Yeah.
golfers would love to hear from you.
It's my biggest
But
passion, so I could talk golf for all night.
yeah, we could just get you going on that. But it was funny because you play someone in basketball and the first move they make, like, oh yeah, this
Well,
person's way better than
it's the
me.
same thing with
And
you. It's like when we even I mean, you're supremely talented with basketball too, so it's like, it's you could just tell someone that practices and puts the reps in and
yeah,
um yeah, so yeah, I'm happy to talk about golf.
yeah, and it's people who know movement too. You can just tell
Hmm.
this. You can tell an athlete, and then you can like immediately tell what that athlete's specialized in by the way they move in that particular sport. But it was funny because I was thinking about that time at Coronado where like you hit it, and I was like, oh goddamn, like all right, he's way better at this than us. Which you also played hockey, so I imagine there's a lot of carryover. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but um, but like I said, these days I've drifted away from strength conditioning a little bit. I definitely still employ a lot of the techniques and training philosophies around it. Uh, I go under the assumption that it doesn't matter who you are. There's an athlete in everyone. You just got to draw it out and help people move better. But these days, I'm working more in general fitness, general lifestyle. I've just found it to be a little more of a calling, a little more important these days. But with that said, a lot of my clients are, weekend warriors, athletes, and you are both a physical therapist and a strength coach. So what we'll talk about a little bit today are parallels, I guess, between both spectrums, fitness, or all three spectrums, I guess you could say, fitness, strength conditioning, and physical therapy, and what considerations people can take from, I guess, all those different realms. But you even already said it. You yourself, you are a father of two and working three different jobs, so it's safe to say you're a pretty busy guy these days. Um, that said, how do you handle staying fit, keeping your workout and your exercise routine going, like your strategies around that? How is that working for you these days?
It wasn't great for a while. I haven't stopped playing. That's the big thing. Like I still play hockey in the winter for like 30 weeks, once a week.
Nice.
I I do one lift a week, and it's like Wednesday mornings. I go and do like deadlifts, and then whatever else I want to do that day. And then I'll do like here and there some mobility work. Um, but and then in golf season, I really take golf probably more serious now, which is crazy than I did in college. In terms of like my mobility, how much I'm working on my swing, things like that. And I don't track like my heart rate and things like that, but I feel like just doing that, my body feels great.
Mm.
So I'm pretty, I limited with my time and how much I can get out of the house and things like that. So I set up a net in the garage. And, we also have like a couple, we got a bench, squat racks, pull up bar, TRX, things like that. So I found that, at nighttime, like around this time, I would get out in the garage, hit balls, and do some mobility work in golf season, and that's what keeps me going. So, but it's hard with we had two kids in a short amount of time. So for a
Yeah.
while, I wasn't. For a while, I mean, there was times where I'm like, damn, I don't even remember the last time I worked out. So
Mhm.
I feel like I'm in like a pretty good spot now of lifting at least once a week, doing some mobility work. Um, but it's really, I could be better, and I think everyone could, but I think it's sitting down and saying, all right, where's my window of time that I can work on myself and do stuff for myself? So I think that's the first thing. Like before you even, if you're going to give a client a program or anything, I'm sure you take this through. Like before I give this to you, like when are we going to do this? Are you going to be coming? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's because you could send someone programs. I can give people home exercise programs to do, but I've evolved. I've come to say like, hey, are you going to be able to do this? And then if they're like
Mhm.
a little easy, I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you a week or two. When you come back to me in that time, I want you to have three days out of the week. We've carved out 20 or 30 minutes of a day, and that's going to be your time. So
Mhm.
it's the availability first. So yeah, I think that's a good starting place, and then just meeting them where they're at, or if it's a patient or a client, meeting them where they're at and going from there. So
Yeah, I mean that is definitely the approach I take with anyone, especially people who are really. I always say I hate saying people are really busy because the older we get, there's no one who's not busy. We're all busy, like we
Mhm.
all got shit going on. But it's kind of like that the time jar exercise in terms of like you have a jar, finite amount of time. You have your rocks, your pebbles, and your sand. Your rocks are the things that are non-negotiable. You have to put those into your life. The pebbles, those things that you need to do don't
Yeah,
necessarily, and then the sand, those are your watching TV things. So it's the same thing. When I start with a client, we do a kickoff call and we sit down for an hour. We map out all their. I basically have designed my program around three core pillars: exercise and activity, behavior-based nutrition coaching, and accountability coaching and guidance. And the way those pillars look, it's going to look a little bit different for everyone. So it's exactly what I do. I sit down and say, like, number one, what's a realistic amount of time that you can, consistently get workouts in? And there's no
yeah,
wrong answer. We're just going to start there and we're going to build on it. Same thing with
sweet.
nutrition, things like that. So that's definitely good for people to hear because, again, you're working three jobs, you got two kids. So
Yeah.
you just got to find time to do it in general. How have you adapted as a dad in terms of do your kids watch you work out? Do you include them in activities? Obviously, like your youngest is too young to do anything, but
Yeah, they, I don't know that. I'm sure Shane has seen me work out a couple times, but Kelly, my wife, they've watched her work out a bunch. That's non-negotiable for her. She's um, great at making the time for her to get her workouts in. A lot more involved than what I'm doing. But so it, for me, it's like he's seen me swing a golf club and he's like, I want to golf. So it's like
yeah,
stuff like that. But I think with the family, it's like on a weekend you could go for hikes. You go for that's a good active recovery, or it could be just a day of exercise for you. You're getting
sure.
outside. So yeah, but that's an
Yeah,
easy way to get movement and incorporating the family, incorporating the kids.
yeah. So I was actually going to talk about Carrie a little bit later because I know she's working within the fitness space now, on top of teaching these days.
Hmm.
And I really love what she's doing these days too because it's super important for moms. Um, yeah, that's a good point. Let's get into the golf swing
Yeah.
and let's talk it, man. Because I know you said you were developing a program based around golf. Has that actually happened, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just accumulating notes and videos and a little bit of content. It's it's probably going to be a small, population that seeks this stuff out, but I'm passionate about it. I love
Sure.
talking about it. I don't do it as much anymore, so that even that's, I feel like you see that a lot in sports, like, can't perform it anymore, so you try to teach it as much as you can. So I'm by no means like a golf teacher, but I understand the swing, I understand the biomechanics, I understand injuries that may involve with it. So at some point it'll be, I just don't want to do it like half-assed. I want to like
That's fair.
put out a good product, make it easy for people to follow, and be accessible. So yeah, I think it'll take some more time for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll have an answer for this, but for the people who do watch this who are avid golfers, because I mean, I live in SoCal and it's a
I miss
big golf area, and I live in Santa Barbara, and there's a lot of golfers here.
nice.
One of my training clients, he actually owns a golf course not too far from us up here as well. So, but if you had to give one piece of advice for golfers, where would you start with that?
One piece, just one piece of
Yeah, I know
advice.
or a couple.
A couple, yeah,
I
top three maybe.
yeah,
Um,
it's
I
like
I
I asked.
think
I asked. Good, sorry.
I think it probably starts with like the equipment. Um, First, you have to ask yourself like how much you want to play. What are your goals? This could be like a consultation for golf. It's like, um, how much are you going to play? Uh, if you're going to be playing like 2 or 3 times a week, you should probably get good equipment and you should get fitted for that equipment. Um,
Hmm.
and all this while this is happening, you should also take lessons. Even a 3 lesson package is fine to get you started. You work with that for a year, and then you just get the sickness. You get the golf sickness, and you want to get better and better and better. And then that's always, I think, 3 lessons a year when you're starting out for the first few years is a great way to go about it. And then just
Hmm.
and that's pretty much all you need. There's fundamentals to follow with golf. They're well documented. It's incredible how many people just don't follow the fundamentals, and yeah, and it's repetition. It's just like anything, like, and
Sure.
it's not just swinging either. It's if you've been playing golf for a while, then hey, you know what? When's the last time you practiced chipping and putting? It's
Yeah.
so there's not a lot of people that do that. So it's like, hey, you're still shooting like 90, 100. You've been shooting this for like 15 years.
Yeah.
What's your practice like? And then if they're not practicing, it's like, all right, well, you can practice a little more, maybe play a little less, and your game will get better. If it's a goal of yours, if you just go out and have fun, that's fine. But yeah, I think there's so many avenues to go. And whenever I get this golf thing off the ground, it's like learn from my mistakes, right? I've been playing since I was 8, so 27 years. I made a ton of mistakes. I know them
Yeah.
all, and I still make them. So yeah, it's like learn from my mistakes. Here's what not to do. So yeah, but yeah, it's definitely taking lessons, getting fitted for your equipment, and practice. Those are the top three.
Practice,
Yeah,
practice, practice.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's well, chip and putting, it's important, but it's way more fun to just get out there and just pull the driver out and just rip it.
yeah. There's fun ways to practice chipping and putting. So you got to make
Yeah,
games, and if you're a competitive person, you can make it work or go with a buddy, and you know. But
yeah,
um, yeah, golf's a funny sport. It's it's I think a love hate relationship for a lot of people, and when
oh
people are
yeah.
deep into it, they'll do anything to get it better. So um,
It's it's an interesting sport. I always say it's the hardest sport because any other sport in the world, it's primarily reactionary, right? You can practice all you
yeah,
want, but you
right,
put an athlete out there and they still have to react to what's happening among them, right? Versus golf, like every time you have to put that ball down, you have to focus, you have to replicate what's considered a perfect swing if
yeah,
you're in your head at all. it's just not going to work out. So I don't play too frequently anymore, but I do. When I do now, I just go in with kind of like you were talking about. My measure of a good hole is, did I lose a ball or not?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't keep score. I just have fun shooting the shit with the guys, and I also find it hysterical when I go out with guys and they get super angry.
Yeah, I definitely used to get angry competitively, college for sure.
Yeah,
Throwing clubs, breaking clubs, things like that. But there's no need for it if you're a recreational golfer. It's like,
yeah,
no, you're doing it wrong.
yeah. You're supposed to be having fun.
Yep, yep.
Supposed to be relieving stress. On the injuries and biomechanics standpoint, is there any advice you might give people in that regard in terms of just
Yeah,
improving their longevity, their game, mitigating injuries, things like
yeah.
that?
You start with the trunk. Start in the center. How are your hips moving? If you don't have internal rotation, you're gonna have trouble just getting a half a swing around. So it
Mm-hmm.
starts with the hips. You need proper internal rotation. Then we'll go up the spine. You need some good thoracic mobility to spare your shoulders. Um, I see plenty of older folks that just don't have either, and it's all arms, and then they just
Yeah.
end up with, typically it's your front shoulder that would be a rotator cuff issue, and it's your back shoulder that would be like a biceps long head issue.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the injuries you see, or a wrist injury or elbow, or it's there's nothing wrong with the arms. It's the center is not rotating as it should, and that comes with lessons, right? You take a lesson, and the
Yeah.
pro says, "Hey, you're not really rotating as much," and the next step should be like, "Hey, why don't you go see my buddy Nays? He knows that he works with a lot of golfers, or if you're having pain in your shoulder, go see Jeff. Get the So that's the I guess the flow that should happen when it happens in a healthcare system, in a healthcare setting, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you know, if golf is something they enjoy, I think life's pursuit of happiness, and if you can't do the things you enjoy, you're not going to be having a good time. So
There's definitely something to that. I I was actually talking to Ramez, 2 weeks ago when we did our podcast, and we were talking about low back pain, and I actually, for the first time in my life, had like the last few months, like a fairly chronic low back issue.
oh,
Very mild, but it was a strained QL, and it just wouldn't go away, And I was talking to him. Part of it is just being an athlete and being dumb. Like I heard it at first, and then it was like 2 weeks of like, oh, I'm just sore. Let me just keep hang cleaning and deadlifting, and then 2 weeks later being like, no, like you're not sore. You're injured, and and I was telling him it's like interesting because it's a mild strain, but it was easily the most frustrating injury I think I've ever dealt with in my life, even over like I've torn my ankles up from basketball. But what I told him, the difference is with that, it almost like makes sense, that injury, because you can see the damage, you can see the swelling, and it landed on a foot, what happened, versus like this, the QL injury, I was working out, I didn't notice it while it was happening, but I had been pushing. What? Do you see that thing up there?
yeah, it's giving you a thumbs
I
up
don't know.
on your
Yeah,
tape.
I don't know what that was. But anyway, so I didn't notice it, but I was telling him, like, I've been working barbell lunge walks for 4 or 5 weeks. The 5th week of the program, like I had the intensity laid out for me. I was all fired up, and I was like, I'm feeling strong as fuck. Like, let's go. And then push that threshold probably like an extra like 30% on the volume
Yeah,
and overall load. And then, like I said, didn't notice it at first. But that same day after the workout, Kimmy and I went to a concert, and I was just on my feet all day, and that probably just fried it. And like I said, it's just the most frustrating injury, because when you get a deep trunk muscle like that, you just don't realize how often you use it, and like even just breathing, you're using it. So
yeah, yep,
re-aggravating it has been everything you do. It just seems to re-aggravate. I re-aggravated my sleep one time. So,
yep,
and we were
yeah.
talking about how good.
Mez always drops bombs of knowledge that are always awesome. I listened to half of your podcast with Maz. Yeah, you know, anytime I hear him talk or do something, I'm like, man, he puts things in a great way to understand him. So
Yeah, it's not shocking he went into like an education side of things. 'Cause he's
yeah,
just so good at like communicating that type of stuff and dealing with it.
did he
Yeah.
mention it was just a load and dose issue?
No, we actually got into that. He's like, he was talking about was it that? Because I talked about because of doing that, I noticed some asymmetries in my moving pattern, especially on like my
Hmm.
left oblique sling, and I had poor internal rotation on that hip. If forget my I you know my TFL and my obliques were a little underactive on that side. Uh, so we were talking about like, was it the load increase? Was it the movement asymmetry? Was it a combination thereof? And on top of
Yeah,
like being at a concert all day and just frying it from an
yeah,
endurance standpoint,
all right.
probably a combination thereof, because obviously we're all going to have movement asymmetries, and is that the exact reason? Probably not,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
you know, it's I'm on the other side of it. It still like has a few days here and there where it flares up a little bit, and it's just like, damn, like it's been almost like 4 months and this thing just still doesn't want to go away. But you know it's part being an athlete, and you're gonna get those musculoskeletal injuries. I'd rather that
Yeah.
than a disc injury.
Have
So
you have you had any body work done? Like work on it?
yeah, I have a massage therapist I see here in Santa Barbara. When the first time I went in, she was just working on my TFL and my AT band on that side and was like, it's really tight over there. Like, you got to
Hmm.
start loosening up. So, it's been a combination, but it's probably been so long, partly because, like I said, it was a combination of I just kept training. Like, I was sore and, pushing power cleans through it and doing plyometrics and deadlifting,
Yeah.
6 to 8 rep maxes. So that didn't help. And then realizing it was injured, and then trying to essentially dial it back and realizing like I'm not dialing it back enough. And then I I actually worked with a physical therapist, and she was like, no, for like 2 weeks, like you're not doing anything but walking and like doing side bends and back bends and rotations. Like that's all I want you to do for 2 weeks. So it's it's definitely been a learning lesson, man.
Yeah.
Say that
Uh,
much.
Humbling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's it sucked, and it also at the same token it hasn't been that bad, if that makes any sense, because my activities of daily living really haven't been impacted. It's not like I'm living in chronic pain. I'm still able to walk my dog and train my clients without really dealing with like pain, but it's certainly limited the way I train, which that's been frustrating because I'm used to being athletic and lifting heavy shit and jumping and rotating, and I haven't been able to do that stuff. So um, it's very eye opening when, like I said, it's a minor strain, but when you're dealing with like a muscle like that, a minor strain is a very significant thing from a performance perspective.
Yeah. And I mean, uh, you know, how's it affecting like you mentally and in your approach to fitness and things like that?
It's been frustrating. You have to have those times of perspective where, like was saying, where you realize it's not that bad and that I'm not living in chronic pain. I'm not having to take like painkillers or anything like that. But I'm not one for depressive episodes or dealing with stuff like that. But everyone has low points, right? Where you're just not feeling like that great. And for
Yeah.
me, when I have those times, like my outlet is like, I'm going to go lift heavy shit. And that's my outlet. So it's been challenging in that aspect. Cause I've been on a tear in terms of like my training. I've been lifting really hard, getting really, really strong, putting on muscle. I got into the steel mace training, which has been super fun.
Yeah. Seen that.
So it's been a challenge, but we're on the other side of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I deal with all day is just getting people to understand, like, if you get back to, there's a process, but if you get back to, you're here, like, if your pain is at this level, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your activity level was here, right? And that the incident that caused that pain drops your activity level to here, that gap is pain intensity, right? Pain is pretty much it's really hard to measure, right? We have a stupid
Sure.
scale, but as you start to do more without increasing that pain, next thing you know, you're back up here, and that pain intensity is not even there. And then once you break that ceiling and get back to doing what you're doing, boom, we're down. Um, I
That
I
makes
try to
sense.
I try to break it down like that, and I think it's easy for people to grasp. And a lot of people still get stuck. And I'm talking with people with chronic pain, right? Like not even a QL strain that makes sense, but you know, 5 years of low back pain. It's like, you know, what steps are you taking to get back to the thing? Well, first of all, what do you enjoy doing? When's the last time you did it? And then, going from there and using that scale. So,
Yeah, you're right. Pain can be such a tough thing to measure because it's so subjective, and there's people out there who have outrageously high pain tolerance levels,
mm.
So, but it's been a learning experience for me. Like I said, it highlighted some movement asymmetries that I could work on, things like that too. Did I lose you?
Now I was muting. Perry's making a ruckus.
Tell her I said hi.
Nate said, how dare you get ready for the morning?
Um, so let's bring it around because we kind of talked golf. Nutrition and diet philosophies. How do you guys handle that, being busy as you are as parents?
I don't know. It's just like, I think decent like habits that were instilled. So we really haven't changed much. We still eat a good amount of protein. Yeah, obviously it could be better, but I've been able to maintain my weight since well, I told you the story of my freshman year of grad school, right? I gained like I don't know. I was pushing 200, which is crazy. I usually float around 175.
Yeah.
Um, and Kelly was going to a gym, and she's like, "Oh, they're doing a weight loss contest." It was my first year of grad school, and I was eating tacos and burritos like a psycho because coming from Mass, going to San Diego,
Yeah, I
I
get that.
mean, yeah. And I was eating tacos and burritos like a lot, like 5 days out of the week, just sitting on my ass studying. Gained a ton of weight, and then did that weight loss contest. And mind you, I'm like 4 months ago, I was working in a gym as a as a trainer. So
Yeah, strength coach.
yeah, so I do this contest. I enter it, and it was a body fat contest, and I won it. It was a cash prize. So
There you go.
I'm a, I'm a poor grad student, and the gym owner like pulls me in his office, like he's got the $400. It slides across the table. He's like, great job on the contest. Like you really put work in. He's like, so do you want to put this towards a membership? And I was like, uh, actually, I was like, I'm going up to my internship. This is gas money to get me up to Washington. So um, I got back to like 175 then, and I just floated around there. And uh, it's I'm also lucky to have like a pretty solid immune system, metabolic, you know,
Yeah.
I'm burning a good amount. Um, but I overindulge and I take it easy the next couple of days, and you know, I try
Yeah.
to use the sliding scale of bad and good, and if I've done a
Yeah.
bunch of good stuff, then but I don't know, Carrie's really probably the reason why we've been able to keep a good nutrition because she's great about meal prepping and cooking and all the good stuff. So
The supportive wife, that always helps, that's for sure.
yeah, but it's probably like if I don't do if I don't prep in the morning for the day or something like that, I'm not gonna have a good day nutrition wise. So it's just preparation.
Yeah.
Because you got to get their meals ready.
Kids, yeah.
Yep.
Um, it's funny you bring up that about metabolism because did you do that? Were you a
I did.
research? Yeah, when
Oh
we
yeah.
senior year of college when we did
Great.
that overeating study. Yeah, that
I
was
tell that
fun.
I tell that story all the time.
Yeah. So Jeff and I were part of a metabolic study in college. We we were research subjects on basically
Happily.
what overeating or a bout of overeating or overindulgence does to your metabolic rate. So they took us in, they measured our metabolic rate, and then they sent us home with
ice cream and donuts.
Ice cream, donuts, cookies, and basically said, eat all this in 48 hours and we'll retest you.
Enough said.
From what I remember, there was no conclusive findings in it, though.
There was.
Oh, there was. What was it? I don't remember.
Our metabolic rates went up. Our resting metabolic rate went up after the 3 days of overeating. So the parameters were eat your normal diet and eat an additional 5,000 calories a day for 3 days. So it's additional 15,000 calories. I remember it very well. And yeah, I think we all went up like 300 calories resting metabolic, or I think I was 300. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what her Dr. Dan, I don't know what her, the reason behind the study was, but
I should try to get her on here and talk about that.
You should.
Because that's interesting, because obviously overeating is what ultimately leads to weight gain. So,
yeah,
obviously, long term.
When you're overeating, though, it's like you're not eating the good shit. I mean, you're not. I mean, you're just eating crap when you're overeating. So I've never found myself like, overeating eggs or like.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
Vegetables and yeah. Dude,
exactly.
I remember doing that and eating that food. I remember just feeling terrible that night when we ate all that food.
Yeah. That was awesome.
I also remember my resting metabolic rate was outrageously high at that point in my life, but we were 21-year-old college students, so it was like, I think it was like 2,200 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I think we were all like 22, 23, just hummingbirds.
Yeah, it's nice. Just buzzing around campus, eating crap.
Crazy.
That's funny. That's cool, man. That's pretty good input too, in terms of just dealing with nutrition when you're as busy as people get.
Yeah.
Obviously, a combination.
I think there's people that do like the food delivery service. There's plenty of companies out there that are putting out good stuff. That's a good option if you can afford it. Although it's probably got to be similar to what they're charging at grocery stores now for food. I mean, if you have like a meal delivery thing, I'm sure it's comparable to what you'd spend in a grocery store.
It's pretty close, and if you're factoring the time in, it's definitely worth it. I have a few clients who they do it, and they're busy. It just helps them out, at least get one meal a day on that. So that makes sense, dude.
Right. I just try to get protein in all 3 meals. Have some healthy snacks a couple times a day, and then that's it.
It's about what I tell all my clients, like, most of your meals, protein's got to be the main character. Load up on protein and fiber. If you're going to overeat on anything, try to overeat on that first and foremost, and because generally speaking, you're not going to be able to eat too much.
Right.
It fills you up quick. I gotta ask, like, being in physical therapy now for how long you've been practicing, what would you say are like the big disconnects between the fitness industry and the physical therapy realm?
I think it's getting better because I think you have nothing against older PTs, but I think you have a new generation of PTs that are coming out, and having the values instilled in importance of fitness, exercise, nutrition. I think we're seeing a little bit more crossover, and then also like, hey, not everyone's treating and billing insurance. There's more cash-based PTs that are really good, and they're more. You're going to find a more active population seeking out those PTs that are doing cash-based stuff, and so I also think it needs to come on the PT that if you are in a setting like myself, like taking insurance, busy outpatient practice, find trainers that are close to you, and it doesn't even have to be like a fitness coaching, it could be yoga, it could be Pilates. I send a lot of
Sure.
my back pain people with Pilates. So it's networking, connecting with people in the community, and then using them as referral sources, and it will work both ways.
Yeah.
So that's really how it has to come, and that's kind of what I love about my setting now is treating the community and working with people in the community. So I think that's what's cool about my position now.
Yeah. That's a good point too, because I have often that disconnect can kind of go both ways too. Because oftentimes with the fitness space, I feel like I see too many just personal trainers trying to be physical therapists. You know what I mean? And it's just like, no, that seems like an issue you got to refer out for and kind of stay within what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Not doing manual therapy techniques. That's a golden rule of mine. Is like I'm not manipulating anyone's soft tissue because I'm not a DPT. I'm not a massage therapist. So I'll show you how to use a foam roller, but that's kind of the scope of what I'll do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I think staying up to date, there's plenty of like continuing education things for PTs to take that, it's treating the CrossFit athlete or treating the, active athlete or, treating the adult athlete. There's tons of courses out there to take where you're having people that know what they're talking about in this realm. And so, yeah, I think it's going to get better. I just don't know where it goes and how to make it more accessible for people.
Mm-hmm.
And insurance and all that stuff, like when you're dealing with people that in an underserved population or some sort.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the people that I'm dealing with, I'm rarely sending people to, the right person. I'll send to Pilates, yoga, gym, whatever, and try to connect them with a trainer or professional in that setting. But it's a lot of people don't have. A lot of people I work with are taking public transit or they're walking. So in their home setting may not be the best. So it's just like letting them know that, hey, there's a community center down there. They have a gym. It's free to use. Or why not walk? Like walking's, and just let them know that like exercise doesn't have to be formal. It could be like getting out and like doing gardening or going walking or so. Just try to move a little more each week. That's what I try to get across for a lot of my patients.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to go to the gym for hours. Just
No,
if you want to just start walking, just take a walk.
Exactly.
It's interesting hearing you talk about insurance too, because it seems like that's probably one of the more challenging things about working with insurance is, oftentimes you get someone with an injury and insurance approves them for X amount of sessions, and you're like, well, this is like a bigger issue than X amount of sessions. Like we need a lot longer than that. Is that a challenge that you struggle with?
There's only been a few cases where like I get an ACL surgery and the person may have like 24 visits in a calendar year. It's like, what? That doesn't make sense. But I think they're good at they're getting better at like giving us visits we need, but they make you work for it. They make you work for it. There's forms and things to fill out, and it's like on top of your documentation. They don't make it easy, that's for sure. They do not make it easy. I think things will have to transit, and co-pays are higher, premiums are higher. I think things will have to transition to like a flex spending plan. I think people should be utilizing those types of plans to have out-of-pocket costs covered. If insurance is giving you a hard time with their PT, then pay cash and go somewhere else, or somewhere that takes a flex savings account or health savings account.
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
How are things going these days with Carrie's pre and postnatal fitness stuff? Because like I said, I love what she's doing nowadays. I think it's a huge. I mean, my sister-in-law just had a baby, and it's such a huge
Nice.
component of for mothers just to get the type of pre and postnatal fitness. It's one of those things I refer out for because I'm just like, that's a different realm of fitness. You should go see someone who's specialized in that. How's that going for her?
She's I think as busy as she wants to be. She's kind of got a cap of clients that she's working with virtually.
Yeah.
She sends them a questionnaire, meets with them, consults, and then sends them a program based on, whatever situation that they're in. Um, but just watching her go through her 2 pregnancies, deliver the babies, it's no joke. You gotta get your body prepared for it, and then even after, like, you can't just, she gets frustrated with this. It's like you go to your 6 week, 6 week appointment after the baby comes, and the doctor says, "Oh, you can go back to like exercising." It's like, wait a minute, you just had all your ligaments stretched out and
Yeah.
pushed a
Yeah.
human outside of you, and everything came back together. Like, all your proprioception's way off. Like, your
Sure.
mechanoreceptors aren't functioning as they were. Like, are you gonna go back and start doing kettlebell swings or like thrusters at CrossFit gym, or so.
Yeah.
And I think people will go back around that time, like, hey, look, I'm doing fine, but it's not gonna last. You need to rebuild. You need to rebuild the foundation before you start doing
Yeah.
some of that stuff. It's I think it falls on a lot of deaf ears, but for the people that want it, it's out there. So
Yeah. Progress. It's not a bad thing they're being encouraged to get back to exercise. It's just
right,
how do you go about doing that the right way?
yeah.
Because, like you said, it's one thing just to start trying to PR and deadlift six
Well,
weeks after.
yeah. I get a bunch of people like, hey, a bunch of moms coming for PT. It's like, I always say, like, what brings you in? It's like, well, I've been ever since I had sciatica develop with my second kid. I'm like, okay, how old's your kid? I'm like, oh, well, I have
Mm,
3 kids now, and they're 8, 10, and 12. I'm like, so wait a minute, you've been dealing with this for 8 years, like, so.
mm,
And things get busy, and
sure.
the care for moms just isn't there. So I think it's awesome what Carrie's doing, and I think it's a good service, much needed. So
Yeah,
get
that
ahead
makes
of get
sense.
ahead of issues.
Yeah, ahead of it, start before,
Hmm.
being as good a shape as you can be before going in. My sister in law rebounded really well. She gave birth a week ago. But
Nice.
she that was one that I actually did some prenatal training, a little bit of it with her because she wanted to stay. She trains with me and she didn't want to go anywhere else, so I had to brush up on that section of my of the
Cool.
NSCA
Yeah.
book and did some
Nice.
Girls Gone Strong, the Molly Galbraith course. I did some of her work too and learned a little bit more about that. Obviously, as Kim and I head towards that phase of our life, it's good to know
Yeah.
that stuff. Obviously,
Absolutely.
yeah, man. Got any practical tips, myths you want to debunk out here?
Oh, um,
I know it's a very, very vague question, but
yeah. I just think, the people's mindset when they're in pain is just so skewed.
Mm,
And it's an issue with uh, it's an issue with a lot of things, but um, it's like I try to simplify it as much as I can. Like, if I can get this, like, you can get it, man. Like, um,
mm,
it's this scenarios, allowing for tissue healing. Like, hey, there are things and variables that can improve healing of an injury, but you can't get around physiology and the time it takes for things to heal. So
sure.
allow for that to happen. Move as much as you can, um, in a beneficial way. Allow the healing to happen, and then after that, it's like, get back to what you're doing. And
Yeah.
most things will heal. If you need assistance from an orthopedic surgeon to put you back together, great. That's going to heal too. And then after that, if you're still having pain, after the healing's happened, it's probably like a neurological situation where you're you have some sensitization of the central nervous system. Your sensitivities are heightened, and it's just seeking out proper help and healthcare providers you trust to guide you in the right direction. Um,
Mm,
I don't know, the chronic pain situation is crazy, especially in like that underserved population, and it's socioeconomical issues as well. And I don't know, it's a big mountain to climb, but I see it
yeah.
see it every day. It's like, uh, people dealing with pain for 20 years, and their
Yeah.
physical activity just declines over this time. And I think the some myths, it's hard to put my finger on a couple or any at the like just on the spot, but
Sure.
any yeah, I just think people are scared to move, and they shouldn't be. I think early and often movement has to be like the key when you get injured, like right away. Like you just hurt your ankle, good. Well, sit down because you're gonna sit down anyways, and now move it like right away.
Hmm.
Let your mechanoreceptors know that hey, we're still gonna move this way. We're gonna maintain that. We're not gonna lose it. Um,
Mm.
and that's a lot of what I talk about with my bleeding disorders folks. They're dealing with internal bleeding, bleeds into the joints. Yeah, you got to bleed into your joint. It sucks, but guess what? You got to get it moving. Like,
Hmm.
you can't just sit around and those days are over. The rice and price days are over. You need to have movement into it as well, in a
Hmm.
beneficial sense, not so much that you're harming yourself, but
Yeah.
that's my big
Or
message. And load tissues, right? Once the healing's happened, then load it, right? Um,
yeah.
so any myths that you can think of that?
Oh, I mean, there's all sorts of them out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've been flooded with so many, and I've done debunked so many in people's faces in the clinic. I'm just like, no, that's garbage. I don't even get around it. I just say that's garbage. I just can't even think of
Yeah,
any
yeah.
right now.
Hey, sometimes it helps me to put it bluntly like that. Um, but I mean, what you said is totally right. I mean, I was telling people too, if you know, there's a difference between training around an injury or in training through an injury. There's always
Hmm.
a way to train around an injury, and kind of like you said, your ankle's busted up. When you're at home, trace out the alphabet, just move it in
Exactly.
ways that you're not pushing into pain, but keep the thing moving, and then work around it. Get on a bike, get on or use a hand cycle, go
Get your
swimming.
circulation up,
There's
so you're delivering
yeah,
nutrients to the area. You're removing waste to get your heart rate up. It's
get some
I think
endorphins in your life.
this all seems simple to us, but and the question I think is like, hey, yeah, it's not enough for a doctor to say, go to PT, because I think people
Yeah,
have this, I think there's a lot of people that have had bad experiences with PT.
sure.
So I think it has to come from the first line of people that when you have pain, what's the first thing you do? You call your doctor, right? So
Yeah,
it has to start there, or things need to change where, hey, the first time you feel pain, you go see a PT, because
yeah,
there's a lot of wasted office visits, a lot of wasted time. I very rarely do I see someone with an acute situation where it happened like that week. Um, we offer like free injury screens, so if someone gets hurt, we have them come on in like that day if they want, and we'll give them like a
yeah,
half hour of our time. So that's the cool thing about our company. But uh, other than that, it's like 4 weeks go by, and I'm treating this person. They haven't moved their back in 4 weeks.
yes,
So, you know what I mean? So it's an
yeah,
uphill battle constantly. And it's like a flow chart issue. There's an issue with the flow. I don't think your primary care should be fielding musculoskeletal orthopedic. I
yeah,
think that they can, but I think a lot of steps could be skipped just by going to a PT directly. And then if a PT knows that things aren't looking right, hey, they should be referring them out. Um,
sure.
and the other question is, are PTs ready for it? I don't know. I don't know if they're ready for like that responsibility.
Yeah, it's definitely a multi-layered issue. Obviously, Kimia, my wife, is a physician right now, and you see they don't have time to do anything. Like
No, right?
dude, Saturday, she went to work at 7:30 a.m. She didn't get home until 1:30 in the morning that day. She worked 18
Crazy.
hours because the ICU was overloaded. Um, and she's not even in primary care yet, but it just gives you an idea. Like you said, it's like, someone sprains an ankle, they shouldn't have to go to a doctor for them to tell you, like, hey, you have a sprained ankle, you should go to a PT,
Yeah.
You should just be able to go right to a PT. And on the flip side, yeah, like if they do and PT's like, I think this thing's broken, like you got to go back to the doctor, So
Yeah.
it's
And
it's a multi-layered thing.
this is an actual thing. Direct access is a thing for PTs. Like people can go to a PT without seeing a doctor, but it's not well known, and
I was
some
gonna,
insurances still don't honor that. But
yeah, I was gonna say I thought that had come about in the last like 10 years where doctors could begin or PTs could begin actually we're allowed to diagnose at this point certain injuries, right? Correct me if I'm
yeah,
wrong.
well, the big thing, it's not even about that's not the most important part. It would be when should you refer out, right?
Yeah.
And it's like if they come in, someone's got like shoulder pain, right shoulder pain, and they got full range, they can reach behind their back, and things aren't looking right. Dig a little deeper. Movement doesn't affect the pain. Okay, maybe it's a visual thing. Send them out for some
Mm,
testing and diagnostics. That's an appropriate. So you need to have PTs aware of those situations. Our national association had that laid out for us, and it was like Vision 2020. By 2020, PTs are going to be autonomous practitioners in the orthopedic world, and
mm.
that was the reasoning behind doctorate education and things like that. But hey, it's 2023 now, and we're still working under MD
Yeah.
referrals and things. So
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, dude. It's I mean, even within the fitness industry, there's obviously a massive health crisis in this country. It's been going on for decades, just in terms of like the instances of heart disease and diabetes, things like that.
yeah,
Obviously, the first line of defense of that is preventative,
yep,
fitness and nutrition.
for sure.
Um, but at the same time, it's multi-layered. Like you deal with someone with schizophrenia and alcoholism, like telling them to eat better and move more probably isn't going to help all that much. So,
Right.
how do you handle that situation? Um, and then on top, like I was talking about, there's just from the medical side of things, there's just not enough doctors right now to meet the demand. Which
Yeah,
where do you go from there? So
it's a
I don't
massive,
know.
massive
Yeah,
problem.
yeah,
I think money's in the wrong places, and I should rephrase that. Yeah, the money is in the wrong places in healthcare. I think if you look at it, but it takes to change that. It's a massive, massive issue.
yeah. And like you said, but a lot of it comes down to socioeconomic things, which is the biggest indicator of health issues, even more than like body weight and things like that. So yeah, it's stay in my lane. I try to help people the way I can, and you said refer out when I can.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. But I mean, I guess the key points of this talk here, number one for golfers is make sure you practice, seek
If you
assistance with
want,
it
yeah, or
if you
manage your
want, or just go out there
expectations.
and
Manage your
or manage your
expectations.
expectations. Yeah, you want to avoid getting injured, work on your hip mobility and trunk stability and thoracic rotation. Those are pretty
Yes.
good
Yes.
actionable things right there.
Yep.
Um, or like you said, manage your expectations. You're not going to the PGA. Just get out there, shoot the shit with your
Yeah.
boys or
Yep.
girls, and have
Mhm.
fun with it.
Mhm.
So, then beyond that, from the people I work with, and relating this talk to them, just as someone who's as busy as you are and a dad of two under the age of 5, get the workouts when you can, prioritize it in a way that makes sense to you.
Yeah. I would just sit down and look at where your time is, and then take care of yourself best you can.
Yeah. Have a supportive wife who meal preps for you. That always helps.
Mhm. For sure.
Although it's kind of the opposite of my house. I do most of the cooking here. So,
Yeah. Well,
but figure out a
develop the
system that
habits
works for
now.
you.
Yeah, develop the habits now before shit hits the fan.
Yeah. Because ultimately it will. You're only going to get busier.
Yep.
At least, most people. But beyond that, like you said, sit down, look at your time, look at your calendar, fit it in when you can because
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a choice. This guy, the guy I've been doing an online training mentorship over the last like summer, and the guy who owns it, Jonathan Goodman, you may have heard of him on social media, but he had a really good quote that was a tweet card, a little like pushing the envelope a little bit, but he said like, "Oh, you would die for your kids, like that's really admirable, but would you get healthy for them?"
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, ooh, it's
Yeah.
hard hitting. It might get a little ruffle some feathers, but he's not lying.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, it's that one. It's hard hitting, but those are oftentimes the ones that people need. But he said the importance of consistency, make small changes for long term success. Be
Mm-hmm.
consistent with those small changes, build on them, things
Yeah.
like that. You got
Move
anything
early.
else you want to add?
Move early and often with an injury.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest takeaway I have. There's too much. I got hurt, so I stopped doing things, and it just leads to no good. So it does,
Yeah,
it's very valuable to have to move an injured body part for your brain to let the brain know that hey, we're not in danger mode right now. Things are okay.
yeah,
Or hey, you know what? You may find you're in danger mode. If you get hurt and you start moving, you're like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Something's happening. All right, you just gathered some information. Now go get attention.
I was gonna say, usually usually you can tell, like, okay, this is serious.
Yeah,
I need to
you're
go deal with this. You know,
hardwired autonomic nervous system will get you feeling all sorts of things if you really hurt yourself.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, it was funny because like Ramez and I were talking about it on our podcast. I don't know if you got to that part, but we were talking about how it's crazy to us that there's such this narrative that like you hit 30 and like 30 years old and you're just over the hill, like that's it. There's nothing about decline from that. And I
Mm-hmm.
was talking about that's silly because look at some of the best athletes in the world. Like obviously they're genetic freaks. That said, they obviously put a lot in, but look at LeBron James. The man's 39 years old
Yeah.
and
Well,
what he can still do.
I guess
Or
yeah,
some hockey players.
exactly. And I told you earlier in the podcast, I was like, with teaching and the freshman I'm teaching at Merrimack, it's like, hey, here's how to be efficient. Like no one wants to study for 10 hours. Here's how to be efficient. So I think
Yeah.
as I'm in my 30s, I've just become more efficient at certain things and
Yeah.
because you don't have time to waste. There's less waste of time. You're very efficient. You're only going to do what's best for you in that moment. So efficiency, maybe you lack some physical ability that comes down a little bit as you age, sure. And then, but your approach to things and your preparation and your knowledge should
Mm.
increase over time. So use those. Uh, yeah, that's kind of what I found as I've been moving less. I try to be really efficient with my movement.
Very
I love.
intentional
I
with your
mean,
time.
well, yeah, the one lift I do, I love doing deadlifts. So hey, that's what I'm gonna do. And each week I try to do a little more than I did last week, and that's it.
Yeah, I feel that. I love
Yeah.
deadlifts.
Mhm.
They're great. Um,
Mhm.
well, dude, I appreciate you jumping on here with me. It was really fun to catch up.
It's a pleasure.
You got anything you want to plug in here? Any socials, clinics?
Not really. Um, don't come to
Fair
my
enough.
clinic. Don't come to my clinic. It's too busy. And if you have a bleeding disorder, you might see me out there. And then, hey, look, keep an eye out for the golf thing whenever that happens.
Yeah, fair. Because yeah, that's something I would definitely share with the people who follow me because I know a lot of golfers,
Yeah.
a lot of them, and I'm sure they're be more than happy to take up some kind of program, whether it's swing comprehensive or just physical preparation, things
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, main takeaway: stay consistent, do what you can, move,
Yeah.
keep
Simple
doing it,
stuff.
don't stop. So,
That's
all
right.
right, my dude, I
All right,
appreciate
bro.
you. This was fun.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk sometime soon.
Sounds good.
Everyone, stay tuned for more podcasts here in the coming weeks, and appreciate you listening. Later. And